bit about your local brand, and we can go down the line, and then we'll take any culture-related questions for the three of them after they're done.
Yeah, perfect. Mike Richter, CEO of Transit Team, SVP for the Midwest region. Transit Team, a provider of paratransit service in the Twin Cities, actually originated in the late 50s. It started in a gas station with 10 old used buses and grew into what is the largest paratransit provider in the Twin Cities when Joyce Dorfler and Harlan Peterson decided to go after the first ADA Met Council Metro Mobility paratransit contracts when they came out in 1986.
I'm Joe Scott, Senior Vice President, Mid-Atlantic Region. Stacy swears I promised to do this. I was lying in bed last night trying to figure out what time things started, and I look at the second thing on the agenda and my name is on it. So we planted questions to make me look smart, so you guys all know.
That's it. Bart Marksohn, We Transport. Son of the founders of the company that we started in the 60s, although it does say 59 on a lot of the literature, but I think that's made up. Just a little secret. But as some of you know and some of you don't know, the We Transport were my mother and father, Walter and Edie, W-E, and we started with one station wagon, that part's true, ran out of the home, and when we started growing to around 10 or 11, the neighbors came over and said it's time to move. And then you have rent to pay, so then you gotta grow from there to pay for the rent. And next thing you know, we're approaching, not quite, but approaching 3,000 employees. And here we are today as part of a great company, and we have fun.
Does anyone have any questions right off the bat about culture and building culture and what it took to build the culture of We Transit Team in Easton? Roger?
Good morning. Mike and Bart and Joe, earlier we heard David just speak about a values-driven company, and I'm really curious to know, one thing that David asked us all to do as leaders is to hold each other accountable moving forward and really helping to build this company. So based on your past experiences with your companies and company values, how do you hold each other accountable? How do you hold your team accountable? What are some examples of that we can use moving forward?
I'll start just because I think I've made this a priority as a part of kind of our integration into this family of brands. Stacy and I decided to make a strategic decision for our lives, and leadership is important in all aspects, right? When you're looking to partner with another company, you want to know who that leadership is, and part of the reason we were drawn to Beacon was the team that was being assembled, and Judith being a big part of her previous successes at National Express. But we started to see some of those maybe patterns of people coming from National Express, and I think I was mostly just concerned that moving forward, I didn't want to be some of those other national companies, and I didn't want the brand that took 60 plus years to build as the leading paratransit provider in the Twin Cities. I didn't want that brand to become what First Transit is now in our market in Minnesota and other markets. So I've been trying to make sure I'm very, Roger, to your point, very, very vocal to Wes and the E team about where I think there's potential problems and just voicing those concerns. I have a seat at the table like everybody else here as a leader. If you don't speak up and you don't say something, change can't be made or decisions can't be made from that feedback. So I've just been trying, when I see issues, whether it's integration, whether it's operational decisions, whether it's pace of change, I'm just making sure to voice that because we build successful businesses, and the last thing we want to do is somehow tarnish that reputation. So it's just important to make sure your voice is heard. And I think that should trickle down through our organization. I think that's the important part is, if you guys see missteps, you should let your leaders know, and we should have discussions about that so we can make decisions.
Look, I can't, our customer holds us accountable. You know, Darren Pettis would not have won an award if his customer didn't like him, or if our service was lousy. Everything he points back to the customer. And we've got kind of a mantra, which is, you know, we're a division of our customers. We're a division of New Jersey Transit. We're a division of SEPTA. They're the ones in charge. And if they're happy, I'm happy. And I'm trying to think of a scenario where a customer would be happy, but I would be unhappy with the performance of our people. Look, and we take a couple of approaches. We try to be very transparent. Just like if we were a department within, you know, in the basement of SEPTA, like if we were having a problem, you know, I wanted to, we were walking up the stairs and saying, look, we got something going on badly here. And I think that approach has been you know, successful for us because people trust us ultimately. But to me, it's all about our customers. I don't hold people accountable. It's our customers that do, ultimately.
I absolutely agree with Joe that it's the customer and up. And that's really, you know, everybody has to, in the organization, has to keep the customer happy. And that's how you're successful. But one of the things that I learned at this, you know, being here is, and one of the things that I like coming out of Beacon is, and I don't remember exactly the quote, but you have to empower the people to make the right decisions, which means you're not really, you're allowing the managers to lead rather than you being in charge and being a controller. Sorry for the controllers in the room, but but I think it's important. And I was telling actually Dave Marksohn a week or so ago a story that comes to mind about empowering the people. That I used to run the motor coach division, which thank God we don't have anymore. Sorry, Joe. And we sold it to Joe. But
Bart said he was making too much money. He had to figure out a way to make less.
yeah. But I had sent a tour up to Nova Scotia, and the driver calls me up. And he says, I got good news and bad news for you. And I said, you know, just give it to me. I blew the engine. And I'm in Cape Breton, which is the furthest part of Nova Scotia. So what am I going to do, send the school bus up there to retrieve the people? That, you know, so the bad news is I blew the engine. The good news is I've already got it into a shop. It's going to be fixed. It's going to swing an engine in 3 days, and all the shuttling that needs to be done, I'm paying a driver, you know, X amount of dollars every day to do the shuttling until I get the bus back, and I'll see you in a week. And it was like, I had always told our drivers that, look, you can call me up. I can try to pull out a yellow pages and try to figure out the problem. But if you have a problem on the road, you're empowered to do whatever you need to do to manage it from where you are up there. Now, I'm not saying you tell your school bus drivers exactly, you know, to go buy a $6,000 engine, but you know, he left off with giving me the wiring instructions. But but it was really, for me, it was like I always empowered the drivers to the tour drivers, and really, I'll say I empower the management to do the right thing, which is a theme I hear out of Beacon all the time. Do the right thing. If we think it's the wrong thing, we'll tell you, but do it, you know, if you think it's right. I mean, that's, maybe you put it in a different way, Judith, Wes, but I think it's really important to trust the people that work for you and to do the right thing, period. I hope I answered the question.
You guys all had very different answers, which I think is so interesting. Thank you. Who else? Who else has a question? Oh, goodness. I'm going to go to this side and I'll come back to you.
Good morning. I think I've heard some of the people in this room over the past year or two say, we're getting corporate. We're becoming a corporate company, and I'm not happy about that. And I've been in various size companies, and we are by far not an Apple, not an IBM. We're still a great size company. But I'm curious to hear someone who has that, brought it up from the family perspective, grown the business. What do you say to your people who say that to you in a negative connotation? And what do you do to spin that around to make sure that it's about the people and it's not corporate, it's just different?
I've always tried to lead as an entrepreneur. So there are a lot. I've never been in a corporate environment. I don't actually know what corporate really means. I know what people mean by that comment, but I think I continue to want to lead as an entrepreneur and have people continue to have that mindset. But that's where we were lacking. Part of the reason we made the decision we made is because we needed more structure in some areas to achieve a certain level of future growth, and I think that's important. So that's what I say to them. I say there's areas where we were too mom and pop, and that inhibits growth sometimes. So structure is an important part of companies as they grow, and when they get to a certain size, if you don't have it, that's where you're going to fail. So that's my response.
Oh, sure. I wouldn't do it by order.
I mean, that's something that scares me too, is were we going to become corporate? But I think the branding, the individual brands that we all bring to the table, I think was really important in not making us corporate. We are people driven, and it's really about keeping knowing the people that work for you, and just knowing their families because they're part of our families, and I think the interpersonal relationships between our various managers is really what keeps us the family business within a corporate. There are KPIs and words that I can't use at my age. But I think corporate is not being interpersonal, and I think that we really are. I mean, look at the fun we had yesterday. Come on, what company does that? We look like fools out there, and I loved it.
Funny, so Dave, you had the same reaction I do when people said it's a family business. We always say, well, I don't like everybody in my family. Maybe all you love everybody who's in your family. So we decided to work together. We decided to be together, and to me, it's in some ways better than family. Kind of stuck with. But look, I've been a corporate guy. I was with Ernst & Winning when it merged with Arthur Young, and when it first happened, you take a bunch of accountants and they're like, we're different than they are, our culture is different. And they were like probably 95% the same. And look, I'll be honest, there are times when things happening, I need you to have a Friday meeting, and I'm like, ugh, regional meeting. But I'm learning to embrace it, right, and understand that there's changes part of this, and as we could have sold other people, we could have been part of other companies, but the kind of mission here and the vision here is, it's clear this is a great place to be. And what you should take from this, what we're doing these couple of days, is that we're a lot alike. And look, things change as part of this, but it'll be over in no time, right? Next week, Workday, a year from now, what's Workday again? It'll happen. So I think I'm forcing myself to be more open to change, but I'll tell you, I don't feel that our company's a lot different. And I think that's this kind of idea of rebranding. Look, I say, I don't have to be smart, I just don't want to be stupid. It would not have been very smart to change, to run out there and say, okay, every customer, all 15 customers of ours, we're not Easton Coach anymore, we're Beacon. What's Beacon? Well, where's our corporate office? Well, not really a corporate, it says here and here and here. So, I don't feel like it's much different, and I think we're pulling it off. And this is the right place to be, and we are better. I said it, I mean it. We would never have won the biggest contract in our company's history if we were not part of Beacon. And so, there's a tangible, no doubt reason why we're better as a bigger organization. And you look, as corporate goes, this is not a very corporate company. Judith's dressed up because she's wearing a hat forward today. So change is part of this, but I think the change has been done in a very careful way. So when I say I was part of corporate, I was part of a company called Travelways that bought 30 companies in like 15 months. And they ran around telling people how to run their business. They ran around telling mechanics. I was talking to Troy last night and saying, imagine some guy like me saying, we're using Quaker steak tomorrow, and you're like, I got a bad experience with that. People aren't telling us how to run our business. I think you guys have found the same thing, how to do our day-to-day job. And I think that the corporate folks here are doing an amazing job of acclimating us into as a cohesive unit.
It's a little along the same lines. Good morning, everybody. Curious to hear a little bit about how you had to deliver the news to all your people that we're selling. We're selling to a bigger company. So I think a little bit, how do we stay away from being corporate? Just how did that go with all your employees? Bring in the meat of that.
All you're doing is Joe talk anyway, so.
Ours was easy. I mean, we were owned by two guys nobody ever saw, or when we saw them, they were running around telling people how to do things, and they didn't know what they were doing. Half my job was kind of keeping them away. So, look, it could have been any easier, and look, the exposure our folks got. Look, we had a couple of meetings, and look, I've known Judith and David for several years, but when Wes and, Core and Courtney came out to Cherry Hill, which is our biggest location, you tell people, you mesh them right away, and then, so that now they can kind of see the people who are going to be the leaders of the company. And, if the guy, kind of principal owner of Easton Coach was a nice enough guy, but he was very, he could be really difficult. And he wasn't, he'd say he was people-centric. So, you get back to all this culture, I'd say our culture starts with the idea of respect for everybody. Everybody. And this guy, I think sometimes lost track of that. So it was easy for us because this is a much better place for our people. The opportunities, etc. Being part of Beacon was an easy story to tell.
I did it the easy way. I delegated. We sort of had our inner circle, folks that were in the know. Rob Quinn, Carmen Tamio, Brett Savitt, a few others. It was tight, tight-lipped at first because everybody knows, there's a lot of fear leading up to the sale of a company. And but I really did. I don't really remember telling anybody specifically at that point. I think I just said, okay, guys, you go tell your groups of people. And made it easy.
I had some experience in my previous life in M&A, so I knew how the term sale or merger goes. But my perspective was the business needs to go on into perpetuity, right? It has a long evolution. And the leaders or the ownership can't always be there. It has to change in order for that business to continue forever. So I viewed this, and we discussed it as a partnership, which is exactly what it is. We're still investors like everybody else in this business. And to Joe's point, the best part of Stace and I, and making the decision to partner and taking on other roles within Beacon is now there. We had a lot of discussion about it yesterday. It's the runway. It wasn't just a transit team. It was across the platform. Is now the runway and the path for other people's career is more open than it was previously, and that was the best part of it. So I strongly and still do strongly view it as a partnership, because without that change, we wouldn't have ops managers that are now, part of the 1% of this leadership of this company, which is just, I think, the coolest part of all this.
And I'll add, we actually kind of announced it more as a merger, a joining of cultures, a joining of teams. So we didn't say acquisition or sale, we said merger, and it was maybe a little duplicitous, but but here we are. It was a sale.
JR's got a question.
JR, here it comes.
Very much. My question is kind of complex, particularly with paratransit. I think the last few years were basically consumed with the pandemic. Even as we're looking at our trip count, we have to consider the number of our passengers that are no longer with us and how that plays into it. But in addition, we had a lot of political unrest, particularly in Chicago and Minnesota, where cities were shut down completely. And I guess my question is, as it seems like political issues are becoming more and more explicit and they're dividing more and more, how do we plan as a company to work through that throughout 2024, where it's becoming more of a theme where we're going to have to sort of address?
I was told there'd be no hard questions.
That's not a softball, Bob.
Yeah, it's supposed to be softball city here.
We have no paratransit, so it's up to you two. I'm shutting off the mic.
Get rid of that too. Look, I just think it's one of somewhere in the breakout sessions, they talked about, you may not know the answer, but you're going to know it. You're going to figure it out. I'm a puzzle person. I do the Times crossword puzzle every day, and there are times when I look at it and I get like 4 words the first pass, and I put it away, and 2 hours later, somehow I'm smarter or something, I put it together. But we've been around enough to know that it's just another thing that hits you. It's another thing that happens. COVID was, a punch in the stomach. But, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was capital W worried for a while. But at this point, I feel like we emerged from it. Passenger counts are down. And look, my little secret is we're making almost as much money and passenger counts are down. That's good, right? Where's Eric? It's less risk. And Kevin, it's, we're transporting fewer people. So stuff happens all the time, and I couldn't even have predicted the things people do. And when you have all these employees, you think about the problems we've had, the issues we've had. You could never have predicted, but in the end, look, this is one of the benefits being wiser and wisest is that you face stuff and figured it out. And so, I think that the political climate. Look, I have very strong political views, but I don't think people who work for me know it. Or some know it, but you can guess. Orange-haired presidents are my favorite topic. But anyhow, and now I'm getting political. But look, it's just it's part of running a business, and we've proven it. And I believe that. I really like that part of it. These breakout sessions have been great because they make me think about things I hadn't ever kind of considered. But that idea of we'll figure it out because we've done it before.
A lot of emotion coming with that question. Early in the pandemic, there was a period of time where I looked at how we did when things completely shut down in the month of March, and look at our burn rate of cash and said, "Holy smokes, we've got 3 months to figure this all out." And then we figured it out, right? We worked with our partner and we worked with our employees, and we found a solution and we made it work. And then our city's on fire. My city is on fire, right? man, the emotion associated with just seeing Minneapolis in a cloud of black smoke, and Stacy and I staying awake watching the news and tracking where fires are, and me going down to Minneapolis like I'm gonna like put, you know, buses or buildings out if for some reason they make it to our neighborhood. But I felt helpless not being there, right? At least being close to it. The struggle as an entrepreneur and as a small business is I don't have these resources. I don't have Joe to be able to call up and say, what are you doing? How are you pivoting? I don't have Bart, even in another industry, to be able to say, like, what's working for you guys, what's not. And so I think the best part of going back to a partnership is I have people, and I love Courtney's, I have people that are much smarter than I am, that we can all collectively figure out solutions to whatever that problem is, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's social unrest, whether it's issues with employees, you name it. And so we're just better. The answer is I don't know, Justin, but we're going to be in a better position collectively than we would be individually. I strongly feel that.
Who else has a question? Maybe something a little lighter than that.
Yeah, easier questions, please.
Steph.
There's a lot of leaders in this room who are much more seasoned than I am, but there's at least a few of us who are just beginning their leadership journey. So I guess my question is, you know, what's the best piece of advice you would have for that new leader to be successful in this industry?
Have fun.
I would say be a sponge, make connections, and never, I think one thing that made me really successful is remembering never to be too important, to be able to do whatever it takes. And what I mean by that is never ask someone to do something that you wouldn't be willing to do. I think that's no matter where you are in an organization, that's a really important thing to remember.
I like that line, that's the first step of being good at something is being bad at it. Did anybody ever wait tables in their lives? So remember the first time you had a tray with a beer on it? What it was like? And even today, when all those years later, I could put 10 beers and walk around and in and out and up and down. And and when I had that first time, I thought I could never do it. And I know when I watch waiters and waitresses do it today, and I can tell the people who are new and the people who've done it a long time. But anyhow, in the end of it, you can't be afraid to guess wrong and make mistakes, because as painful as they are in the moment, you learn from them and you realize that the sun rises the next day anyhow. And I've had some really scary moments. I remember running out of money at a place where I was waiting for money to come in, and I'd send checks out and payroll, and all of a sudden, it was a Friday afternoon, and we were like $1 million short. And drove home and thought, okay, what happens now? But Monday came, and we survived it. We got a little cash infusion and some other things, but I think about that time all the time, because that was maybe as scary a moment as I ever had. And you'll make mistakes, and you'll deal with difficult things, but there's always a solution. And I like the point you're making, and Mike's making, is that together, I text Mike like, what the F, when I've got a problem with something, or what are you doing about this, what are you doing about that? And I say it, give him a lot of credit. He's tried things, he's braver, he's more entrepreneurial than I am, and he's tried things about how to pay drivers, and we changed the way we pay drivers a lot. And he tried it first and it worked, and so I did it, and I took credit for it locally, but we're better together. So that's the other thing I would say is learn from people around here, and learn from their mistakes so you don't have to make them yourself.
And I think you show up humble, or with humility, which I think we got from our breakout session. Don't show up, knowing things that you don't know, and people want to help you learn and want to see you succeed, and let them do their job, and like Mike said, be a sponge.
Tell me a small story or anecdote that you can remember at your respective companies where you knew that you were doing something right culturally.
When we did the New Jersey Transit Region 5 presentation, I have a back seat. So it's Zoom meetings, not in person, and so it's Dave Batchelor, Grant I know is front row, Jim Marmo, Heather, and like Mark Glassford in the background. And you know, when we talked about how we lost all those contracts, I was the one in the front row during those, by the way. But I watched, particularly, I mean, Jim is a seasoned pro, but I watched Grant and Heather deliver and make sense of every complicated question. They're trying to zing you at New Jersey Transit. And this is like when I announced we lost the Atlanta contract, and Bart interrupted that to say that he just wanted us to explain our contract. Stealing my thunder. But to watch people who we've developed just blossom and realize that they're better at this than I am. I mean, you know, I almost, like, you know, I saw Tim get very emotional in his, one of the awards. That's the way I felt that day, like, oh my God, these guys are just, they're spectacular. And you know, I look at Grant and Heather and think, these are people that are gonna lead our company. And I don't have to worry about Easton Coach Company forever.
We got to do a lot of really cool things as business owners, but one tradition we carried on throughout the entirety of Transit Team's existence has been a holiday party, and I said it every year that I was there, and as the MC or the leader, you know, how cool it is to we don't get everybody, right? Paratransit doesn't stop. We can't possibly get everybody in the same room, but everybody who wanted to come or could come, even if they were supposed to work, we figured out a way to make it happen, but we got everybody in one room. And it was after we had taken our first contract from First Transit. We took an agency contract and started it up flawlessly, getting no driver. To Joe's comment about, you know, oh yeah, you get a contract and you get the driver as well. That's not always the case, but we were super successful in a startup without getting any drivers. And I made the comment about what the next goal was, and the next goal was the next First Transit contract. It was getting the South Metro contract. And I remember looking around the room, and there were people who clapped, and there were people who were not. Like, this is employees across the entire company who saw what we did with the agency contract, saw that their work wasn't impacted, right? We weren't running short, they weren't running around, and believed in the strategy and saw how everybody was so affirmative. Like, everybody in that room knew that when I said it that year that we were gonna get it, and it happened. And that was just the coolest moment to me, as a leader, right? To have executed on a strategy and put forth what the next thing was in place, and have, at that moment, which was 2 years away, have everybody had already bought into what kind of the next phase was. And I think that was like probably one of the coolest moments I've ever experienced, I mean, personally and in my professional career. It was just special. I'll never forget it. Yes, I agree. Easton contracts, 2026. How about that? Yeah.
Sorry for my alarm clock. I should have been sleeping until then. I wake up at 9. What can I say at my age?
Nothing wrong with that.
But you know, if I think about when I realized that we had a great culture, I think back to our foray into New York City, and the paperwork in New York City is a little different than it was for the rest of New York State. They had different, what they call 13 county criminal record and things that we had not really seen. It goes deeper than, it was really extensive. And we were way behind on the paperwork. And the city was starting to threaten us that if we didn't get things done by X date, that's it, they'll pull the contract and give it to somebody else. And the city does not make idle threats. And that night, we were there till 11, maybe 12 o'clock at night, and it was all hands on deck. And everybody everybody came together because everybody wanted to succeed. And nobody wanted to fail, and nobody wanted to have the reputation that the city pulled the contract because we couldn't get paperwork together. And it was really, I think March was there. And it was really, there was such a team effort to put it together. And some of the leaders of that team, really, you could see, they rose, the cream rose to the top. And those people, unfortunately, like John Toops, and who's not with us now works for a school district, that's how good he is. Went to the dark side. But you know, I realized after that success, and we started up New York City successfully, there was really a spirit within the company of how good we are as a team, how good we are together. And we were really burnt out. And we didn't take on any new work for at least a year or so. But then after everybody, you know, we pulled it off and we were like patting ourselves on the back. It's like, when could we do that again? I love being tortured, you know. We can handle anything, we can do this. But it was really, you know, part of a strong culture is having a strong move forward. You know, to the growth positive growth can really, it's just self-fulfilling. It make, you know, you just want to do it again and be tortured again and grow and get bigger and better, and here we are. I think we're bigger and better for all our experiences with torture.
Well, we are headed into our final breakout session. Another round of applause for these handsome fellows.